I was 15 when I wore the white dress. I thought it was love. I thought it was protection. I thought a 42-year-old man calling me special was saving me from that house where I took care of everyone and no one took care of me. 3 days after getting married, he locked my phone with a password. And when I asked why, he answered with a casualness that chilled me. Married women don't need to talk to anyone. It took me 8 years to understand that a 15-year-old girl doesn't get married. She gets abused. When I look back today, I think, God, how did I let that happen, you know? But then I remember I was 15 years old. I was a child, right? And he was 42 years old. Today, I'm 31, and I can talk about this without feeling that shame that consumed me, that feeling that it was my fault, that I'd been stupid, that I should have noticed. But how does a 15-year-old girl realize she's being manipulated by a predator disguised as a man of God? I grew up in rural Oklahoma, in one of those small towns where everybody knows everybody, you know how it is. My family was evangelical, but like old-school evangelical, strict, full of rules. I was the oldest of 5 siblings, and man, I never really had a childhood. My mother suffered from severe depression for as long as I could remember. She'd spend all day in her room, sometimes wouldn't even get out of bed. My dad would leave at dawn to work on the farm and only come back at night. So everything fell on me, right? I'd wake up at 5 in the morning, make coffee for my siblings, take the little ones to school, come back, clean the house, make lunch, pick them up again, help with homework, make dinner, give baths. I was doing all this alone at 12, 13 years old. People would look at me and say, "Wow, what a mature girl, so responsible, seems like an adult." And I thought it was a compliment, you know? I was proud of it. But the truth is, I was just an overloaded, tired child who wanted to be seen, wanted to be loved, wanted someone to take care of me for once. I didn't have real friends because I didn't have time to go out, to chat, to be a teenager. When the girls at school talked about parties, boys, clothes, I'd sit quietly in my corner thinking about the grocery list I had to make. Then, in 2008, I was still 14. A new church opened in town. A really big, beautiful, modern Assembly of God. And Roberto showed up. Man, when he walked into that church, everyone stopped to stare. I'm not kidding. He was different from everyone there, you know. Wore an impeccable suit, shiny shoes, expensive watch on his wrist, drove a silver Corolla that was the nicest car in town. He'd moved from Oklahoma City, was a businessman, owned a big construction supply store, widowed for 3 years, no kids. Everyone was impressed. Like, what a blessed man. What a beautiful testimony. He started attending every service, always sat in front, always participated, offered jobs to the youth in the congregation, helped families financially, paid electric bills for people who were behind. He became like a hero of the church, you know. And then one day, it was a Saturday, we were doing a charity lunch, and I was in the kitchen helping to serve. I remember I was wearing a blue floral dress my mom had made, hair pulled back in a ponytail. And he appeared in the kitchen and just stared at me. He said, "What's your name, girl?" I answered all shy. "It's Camilla, Brother Roberto." He smiled. That smile I thought was gorgeous back then and said, "Camilla, what a beautiful name. You're a very special girl, you know that? You have a different light in you." Man, no one had ever said that to me. No one had ever looked at me that way. Like I was important, you know. I turned red, laughed, not knowing what to say, and he continued, "God showed me in prayer that you're a very blessed young woman. I'll pray for you." From that day on, he started noticing me always. After services, he'd come talk to me, ask how I was, how the family was, if I needed anything. Brought gifts for my siblings, chocolate, toys, offered to pay for my mom's doctor's appointments. My dad started thinking this was wonderful, kept saying, "What a man of God, what a blessed heart." And I was falling in love. Not with Roberto exactly, but with the attention, the affection, having someone who saw me, who valued me, who pulled me out of that suffocating routine of being my sibling's mother without actually being a mother. 2 months later, he asked to talk to my dad. I remember it was a Tuesday in December 2008. It was really hot, that absurd Oklahoma heat. They stayed in the living room talking, and I stayed in the kitchen pretending to wash dishes but trying to listen. Then my dad called me. I sat on the couch all nervous, and Roberto said, looking into my eyes, "Camilla, I prayed a lot, sought God, and He showed me that you're the woman He prepared for me. I know you're young, but you have a maturity that many adult women don't have. I want to take care of you, give you a future, pull you out of this difficult life. I want to marry you." I looked at my dad expecting him to find that absurd, right? That he'd say, "She's 14, are you crazy?" But he was smiling, man, and said, "My daughter, this is a man of God, established, who can give you a good life. It's a blessing." I didn't know what to feel. Part of me was scared. Everything was too fast, too intense. But another part, the needy part, the part that wanted to leave that house, that responsibility, thought it was the solution. I said yes. We got engaged in January 2009. I turned 15 in March, and we married in May of the same year. 5 months of dating, always with someone nearby because we had to preserve, right? Everything had to be proper for the church's eyes. He gave me gifts, took me for ice cream, bought clothes for me, shoes. My siblings adored him. My mom was the only one who seemed not to like it. You know, she'd look at me with a strange expression, but she never said anything. She barely said anything about anything because of the depression. On the wedding day, she cried a lot, a whole lot, and I thought it was emotion, that she was happy for me. Today, I know she was losing me and knew it wasn't right. I married in white, simple but pretty dress, packed church, everyone saying it was beautiful, that it was God's will. I had just turned 15. He was 42, 27 years difference. But nobody questioned it because in the church this was normal. The older the man, the wiser, the better provider. And I was happy that day. I thought I'd gotten lucky, that I was going to be happy, that my life would be different. The wedding night was horrible. Horrible, really horrible. We went to an inn nearby, and when the time came, I was terrified. Right? Because I'd never done anything. I didn't know anything. And it hurt, man. It hurt so much. I cried, asked him to stop, and he kept going, saying it was normal, that every woman goes through this, that a wife has to serve her husband. I ended that night bleeding, in pain, feeling dirty. But I couldn't complain because I was a wife now, and wives have obligations. 3 days later, we went to the house that would be ours. And that's when I discovered the first lie. He'd said it was a house in town, really close to my family, that I'd be able to visit my siblings anytime. But the house was in a gated community 40 minutes from downtown, isolated, no nearby neighbors, in the middle of nowhere. It was beautiful, big, had 3 bedrooms, huge living room, modern kitchen, but it was a prison. I looked around and felt a tightness in my chest, but thought, it's just my imagination. It'll pass. That same day, he took my phone and put a password on it. I asked, "Why are you putting a password on my phone?" He answered with that calm voice, you know, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Married women don't need to talk to anyone. You have me now. You have this house. What else do you need?" I froze. Didn't know whether to laugh, cry, question. So I stayed quiet. And that was my first mistake, accepting that as if it were normal. Weeks went by, and the life I thought I'd have never came. He'd leave early for work, and I'd stay in that house alone all day. No landline, no internet, no neighbor to talk to. He'd come back in the late afternoon, and the first thing he'd do was examine me, literally. He'd look through the whole house, open cabinets, check what I'd done during the day, ask what I cooked, if I'd slept, if I'd cried. I had to account for every minute of my day. And then, right, he wanted sex. Every day. Didn't matter if I was tired, if I was hurting, if I didn't want to. He'd say it was a wife's obligation, that it was marital debt, that a woman has to serve her husband. And I was 15. I didn't know I could say no. I thought that's just how it was. 3 months after the wedding, I was pregnant. I remember the day I found out. I was in the bathroom looking at the positive test and feeling absolute panic. I didn't want to be pregnant. I didn't want a baby. I was still a child myself. But when I told him, he was thrilled, started calling everyone, saying God had blessed our union. And I had to pretend I was happy too, had to smile, had to thank God. But inside I felt trapped. Like now I really couldn't leave. Now I was stuck forever. Pregnancy was hell. I had severe nausea, threw up everything I ate, got really weak. But he didn't care. I still had to clean the house, cook, be available for him. When I was 7 months pregnant, I started having contractions and the doctor said I needed rest. He let me rest for 2 days and then said that was enough, that women in the countryside give birth in the fields and keep working. Melissa was born in September 2009. I was still 15, had just turned 16 2 months earlier. Natural birth, 22 hours of labor, no epidural because he said God didn't want women to have anesthesia. That pain was part of God's punishment on women. I screamed so much, so very much, I thought I was going to die. When Melissa was born and they put her in my arms, I felt something strange. Wasn't that instant love everyone talks about? I looked at that baby and felt scared. Scared that I didn't know how to be a mother. Scared that I was now more trapped than ever. Scared that she'd suffer because of me. But then she opened her eyes and looked at me, and something inside me broke. I realized I had to protect her. That I couldn't let her grow up thinking that house was normal, that what I lived was normal. But at that moment, I still didn't know how to get out. So I stayed. Years passed and everything got worse. He became more and more controlling. Counted the eggs in the fridge, checked the trash, inspected my underwear to see if I was cheating. Whenever I asked to visit my family, he'd make a scene, say I didn't love him, that I wanted to leave him, and in the end, I just stopped asking. Melissa grew up in that atmosphere of tension. She learned not to cry much, not to make noise, not to bother him. At 3, she was already quieter than normal, already fearful, and I saw all this happening and felt powerless. Felt I'd failed as a mother before I'd even started. The first time he hit me was in 2012. Melissa was almost 3. I don't even remember what I did. I think I forgot to buy something at the market. I don't know. He arrived, started yelling, and I answered back. Big mistake. He grabbed me by the hair and slammed my head against the wall. I fell on the floor dizzy, with blood coming from my nose, and he stood over me saying it was my fault, that I disrespected him, that a wife doesn't talk back to her husband. Melissa saw everything. She was on the couch and saw her dad hit her mom. I'll never forget the look on her face. Pure terror. After that, the violence became routine. He'd hit me for anything. For the food being too salty, too bland. For looking at him wrong. For not looking. For talking too much. For staying silent. I lived walking on eggshells trying to predict what would set him off. But it was impossible because it was never really about what I did. It was about control. About power. About him being a coward who could only feel like a man by destroying a woman. The worst part wasn't even the physical beating. It was the psychological violence. He destroyed every bit of self-esteem I had. Called me fat, ugly, stupid, useless. Said no man would ever want me. That I was lucky he put up with me. That I should be grateful he didn't abandon me on the street with a bastard kid. And after years of hearing this, I started to believe it. I looked in the mirror and saw a worthless woman. I thought I really was the problem. That if I were better, prettier, more obedient, he wouldn't need to hit me. In 2014, I tried to leave the first time. I gathered courage, packed a bag with some clothes for me and Melissa, waited for him to go to work, and left. Went to my parents' house. And you know what happened? My dad sent me back. Said a woman's place is with her husband. That marriage is for life. That I had to learn to be a better wife. He didn't even ask if Roberto hit me. Didn't want to know. Just sent me back. And Roberto, when I got home, beat me so badly I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. Said if I tried to leave again, he'd kill me and take Melissa. And I believed him. I stayed 5 more years. 5 years enduring, surviving. Until in 2019, something happened that changed everything. Melissa was 10 and started asking questions. Questions that broke me. Mom, why does Dad hit you? Mom, why don't you leave? Mom, are you going to die? And I realized I was teaching my daughter that this was normal. That woman gets hit. That woman stays quiet. That woman has no way out. I was raising her to be another victim, and that I couldn't allow. I started planning in secret. Every time I went to the market, I'd take a little cash from the change and hide it. I saved for 8 months, got $520 together. It wasn't much, but it was what I had. I contacted a women's shelter online when he was at work, found out they'd take me and Melissa, that they'd help me get a restraining order, find work, start over. And then I chose a date, November 15th, 2019, a Friday. He'd leave at 7 in the morning. I'd have the whole day to execute the plan. That morning, I woke up at 6, made coffee for him like I did every day, kissed him goodbye like I did every day. And as soon as he drove off, I grabbed Melissa, put her in the car with the bag I'd hidden in the trunk, and drove to the shelter. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the steering wheel, kept thinking he'd appear out of nowhere, that he'd kill us right there. But I kept driving. And when I parked in front of the shelter and a woman opened the door and said, "You're safe now," I collapsed. I fell to my knees on the floor and cried like I'd never cried in my life. Cried for the girl who got married at 15. Cried for the 8 years I lost. Cried for relief. For freedom. The first months were the hardest of my life. Harder than the marriage. Because there, I at least knew what to expect, even if it was bad. But now, everything was uncertain. I lived in fear he'd find us, that he'd show up and take Melissa, that he'd kill me. The shelter was basic, small room with bunk beds, shared bathroom, simple meals, but it was safe. And that was everything. Melissa was confused, wanted to go home, asked about her dad, and I had to explain as best I could that Dad hurt Mommy, that we had to stay away, that now we were going to build a new life. The shelter helped me get documents, enroll Melissa in a school nearby, file for divorce. I got a restraining order but knew that piece of paper didn't mean much if he wanted to hurt me. I started looking for work but didn't have experience in anything, barely finished high school, until a woman at the shelter told me about a free nursing assistant course. It was 3 months, intensive. I went every day leaving Melissa at the shelter's daycare. I studied like I'd never studied in my life. Passed the test, got certified, and 1 month later, I was hired at a hospital in Tulsa. My first paycheck, I cried. It was $900. $900 that were mine, that I'd earned, that no one could take from me. I opened a bank account, bought new clothes for Melissa, and started saving to rent a small place. 6 months later, I left the shelter with my daughter and moved into a small apartment. It was in a rough neighborhood, not the safest place, but it was ours. 2 rooms, tiny kitchen, old bathroom. But for me, it was a palace, because it was freedom. The divorce took 2 years to finalize. He contested everything, said I was crazy, that I'd abandoned him, that I was an unfit mother. My lawyer, who worked pro bono through the shelter, fought hard. In the end, I got full custody of Melissa. He got supervised visitation once a month, which he never used, and the divorce was granted. He had to pay child support, but almost never did. But I didn't care. I didn't want his money. I wanted distance. Today, 3 years later, I have my rented house, small, 2 bedrooms, simple, but it's mine. Melissa is 10, in school, also in therapy, recovering. She still has fear sometimes, still has nightmares, but she's seeing that men don't hit women, that mom can work and be independent, that we can live without fear. I learned that what I lived through has a name: child sexual abuse, unlawful imprisonment, financial abuse, psychological abuse. It wasn't just a bad marriage, it was a crime. And he was never arrested because in America these things rarely lead to jail time. But at least he has a restraining order. At least he can't come near me anymore. Today I'm 31, and for the first time in my life, I know who I am. I discovered I like comedy movies, vanilla ice cream, that I'm good at taking care of people, which is why I became a nursing assistant. These are simple things, silly even, but things I could never discover because I jumped from childhood to marriage without going through adolescence. And there's one more thing. I'm dating. I met him at the hospital. He's a nurse, 32 years old. At first, I was terrified of being in a relationship again. Thought every man would be the same. But no, there are different men who respect, who listen, who treat women as equals. He treats Melissa like a daughter, respects my space, understands when I have episodes. We've been dating for a year and 4 months, and for the first time I understood what real love is. Love doesn't hurt, man. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't diminish. Love doesn't hit. Love doesn't humiliate. Love takes care, respects, gives freedom. I still have nightmares sometimes. I still have days when I see a man who looks like Roberto on the street and my heart races. But I learned to deal with it, to ask for help. I have a support network, my therapist, my coworkers, my boyfriend. I don't have contact with my family anymore. My dad died in 2020, and I didn't go to the funeral. He never apologized for selling me to a predator. My siblings grew up hearing I was the black sheep. We don't talk. Does it hurt? It hurts a lot. But it hurts more to stay close to people who blame you for the violence you suffered. So I chose my peace. You know what amazes me most when I look back? It's realizing how long I thought I had no choice. 8 years trapped thinking I couldn't leave, that no one would believe me, that I was too weak. But the truth is, there's always a choice. It's not always easy, not always safe, but there's always a door. There's always someone willing to help if we ask. I know there's a woman reading this right now who's going through something similar, who's being controlled, isolated, diminished, who's being beaten, cheated on, humiliated, who thinks it's her fault. I need to tell you, he's not going to change. A man who hits doesn't stop hitting because you improved. A man who cheats doesn't stop cheating because you lost weight. This behavior isn't about you. It's about him, about his character, about his choice to be violent. And I need to tell you something else. You're not crazy. Your intuition is right. What you feel is real. If you feel afraid of your partner, if you walk on eggshells not to irritate him, if you changed everything and it's still not enough, if you're isolated, if he controls your money, your phone, your clothes, if he insults you, humiliates you, compares you, if he raises his hand, if he forces you sexually, you're in an abusive relationship. And it's not your fault. Nothing you did justifies this. You don't need to leave with money, with a house set up, with a guaranteed job. You can leave with just yourself and your kids, with the clothes on your back, and rebuild from zero. I did it. Thousands of women do it every day. It doesn't matter how long you stayed. Doesn't matter if you have kids, if you don't work, if you're 50 and think it's too late. It's never too late to start over. My life truly began at 23 when I left. I'd lost 8 years, but I had the rest of my life ahead of me. And you do too. I won't lie that it's easy. It's not. The first months are horrible. You'll be scared. You'll question your decision. You'll want to go back because at least there you knew what to expect. But don't go back. Take a deep breath, cry what you need to cry, ask for help, but don't go back. Because each day away gets a little easier. And one day you wake up and realize you didn't think about him. And another day you really laugh. And another day you look in the mirror and recognize yourself again. Today, when I look at Melissa, at my small house full of peace, at my job that gives me pride, at my boyfriend who respects me, I think it was worth it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of fear was worth it. Because I'm alive, man. I'm truly alive. Not just surviving. And that's everything. If you're going through this, I ask you, don't give up on yourself. You deserve peace. You deserve to be happy. You deserve real love, not crumbs of affection between violent episodes. You deserve to decide about your own life. And that's not selfishness. It's not abandoning family. It's not going against God. That's survival. That's self-love. That's courage. And if you know someone going through this, don't judge. Don't ask, why doesn't she leave? Ask, how can I help? Offer your house for a night. Keep her documents safe. Believe her story even when everyone doubts. Sometimes all we need is one person who believes in us to have the courage to take that first step. I did it. You can too. We can do it together. Subscribe here to the channel to hear more stories of women who left, who rebuilt, who won. Leave your like if this story touched you. And if you need help, look for the nearest domestic violence shelter. We're here. You're not alone. You're never alone. A huge hug to each one of you, and strength. Lots of strength. Life after violence exists. And it's good, man. It's really good. From which city are you watching? Leave it in the comments.